Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating clinical physiology of prolonged fasting and autophagy. For decades, the medical community kind of lumped fasting in with basic starvation. We totally misunderstood the mechanics. But today, with advanced cellular biology and clinical imaging, we know it's actually a highly conserved, billion-year-old survival and repair program. And since you're coming at this with a scientific mind, we're not just talking about weight loss here. We're talking about mastering metabolic flexibility and literally renewing your cells from the inside out.
Here is the roadmap for our explainer today. We'll track the biology chronologically. First, the fuel switch from 0 to 16 hours. Second, AMPK, mTOR, and autophagy up to 24 hours. Third, systemic clearance and mitophagy. Fourth, we'll hit the hormones and neurological shifts. Fifth, that deep 72-hour immune reset. And finally, we'll wrap up with essential clinical guardrails and refeeding protocols. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The fuel switch, 0 to 16 hours. Moving from grid power to the backup generator. To really understand fasting biologically, we have to look at the immediate hours after a meal when your body gears up to switch its fuel sources. Think of your incoming food as the main power grid. As long as you're eating, the grid is alive, and your body is happily running on circulating glucose. But when that grid goes offline, that is exactly when your incredibly sophisticated backup generator is engineered to kick in.
Let's break down this timeline, because the crucial turning point here hinges entirely on your insulin dropping to unlock our fat cells. Around the 8-hour mark, your liver is actively buffering your blood sugar by breaking down its glycogen reserves. Simple enough. But right around hour 12, as insulin falls to its baseline, the suppression on an enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase, or HSL, is finally lifted. This is the exact metabolic switch. Fatty acids just start pouring from adipose tissue into the bloodstream, where the liver converts them into ketone bodies. By 16 hours in, your brain is actively slurping up these ketones as a primary fuel.
Our metabolism is essentially binary, guys. You are either building and storing, or you are dismantling and utilizing. There is no in-between. Every cell in your body is carefully listening to these two master signals. When insulin is high, the growth pathway, mTOR, is literally shouting at your cells to build and store. But when insulin falls, the energy-sensing protein AMPK rises. AMPK effectively fires the growth foreman and brings in the site inspectors, completely halting cellular proliferation to focus entirely on maintenance and repair.
Now, 100,000. That's a massive number. It represents the average calories stored as adipose tissue in a lean adult. You are essentially a walking pantry, a biological deep freeze just waiting to be tapped. Even someone with a very low body fat percentage carries enough stored energy to fuel intense physiological function for weeks. We did not evolve to carry this massive reservoir by accident. It's the designated fuel specifically meant to be burned during these low insulin, high AMPK maintenance windows.
Moving to Section 2. AMPK, mTOR, and autophagy. From 16 to 24 hours. The cellular shift. As we enter this window, the metabolic transition ends and a profound cellular repair program begins. The body is no longer transitioning, it is fully committed to internal fuel, and this is where the cellular biology gets incredibly cool.
A quick clarification on autophagy. It comes from the Greek for self-eating, but the crucial point here is that autophagy isn't your body cannibalizing itself. Not at all. It is a highly selective auditing and recycling operation for cellular debris. Over time, your cells accumulate misfolded proteins and oxidized lipids, really the molecular equivalent of bent, rusted machinery parts that drive systemic inflammation and aging. Autophagy is the specific mechanism that identifies and shreds this junk. So here's how the cascade actually unfolds. By the time we hit 24 hours, the growth hormone, mTOR, is fully shut off by the energy sensor, AMPK. This unleashes autophagosomes to rapidly clear out the inflammatory junk. These are literal double membrane bubbles that form rapidly inside your cells. They ruthlessly hunt down the tagged debris, swallow it whole, and drag it over to lysosomes, which are basically acid-filled pouches that dissolve the waste right back into its raw amino and fatty acid components. Nothing is wasted here. Everything is recycled to build healthier tissue the minute feeding resumes.
All right, Section 3, systemic clearance and mitophagy, spanning 24 to 48 hours, demolition and recycling. Pushing past that 24-hour mark, this internal cleanup crew shifts from doing preliminary work to a systemic, full, deep clean of your tissues.
This brings us to mitophagy. Damaged mitochondria leak free radicals and actively drive aging. But through the incredible process of mitophagy, Your cells actually tag these failing power plants and recycle them into highly efficient new ones. When failing mitochondria lose their electrical charge, specific proteins called PINK1 and parkin act like a red barcode, physically tagging the broken mitochondria for destruction. Once cleared, and when feeding eventually resumes, your body undergoes mitochondrial biogenesis, literally replacing the old, leaking power plants with fresh, highly efficient units.
And when we look at clinical weight loss tracking during extended fasts, like a 10-day fast, MRI data proves that visceral fat is preferentially targeted, while true skeletal muscle is largely spared. This data is absolutely vital. While the scale might show a rapid initial drop, much of that is just glycogen releasing its bound water. But fundamentally, because insulin is profoundly suppressed, the metabolically active and dangerous visceral fat wrapped around your organs is what's continuously oxidized for fuel.
Section 4. Hormones and neurological shifts, preservation and clarity. Let's tackle the physiological shifts in the endocrine and nervous systems next, because this is exactly where some of the biggest medical myths about fasting originate. There's this common assumption that a lack of exogenous calories leads directly to physiological breakdown. The clinical reality is precisely the opposite.
The classic question, does prolonged fasting cause muscle catabolism and dangerous hypoglycemia? Clinicians are rightfully concerned about this, but our evolutionary biology has an incredibly elegant safeguard. If our ancestors broke down their skeletal muscle every time they missed a few meals, we would have gone extinct millennia ago. Instead, the body aggressively defends lean mass during a fast, while hepatic gluconeogenesis provides the exact baseline amount of glucose required for the specific brain regions that just cannot use ketones.
Check this out. 2,000%. That is the potential spike in human growth hormone during a fast, serving as a biological preservation order to fiercely protect your lean tissue. Research indicates that by hours 24 through 48, growth hormone surges massively. It acts as a shield, instructing the body to strictly utilize adipose tissue for energy while preserving muscle mass. This proves that fasting is completely distinct from the destructive catabolism we see in chronic starvation.
Furthermore, instead of getting brain fog, your brain actually thrives on beta-hydroxybutyrate, or BHB. It yields way more ATP per molecule of oxygen consumed than glucose does. You are literally running your brain cleaner with fewer reactive oxygen species. At the same time, fasting upregulates BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it as a fertilizer for your neurons that promotes the growth of new synapses. This is exactly why patients frequently report profound mental clarity on day 2 or 3 of a fast.
Moving into Section 5, the deep immune reset at the 72-hour mark, stem cells and genetics. At this point, we leave the territory of common intermittent fasting and enter the realm of extraordinary systemic reset. This phase should really only be approached by healthy, prepared individuals because the physiological shifts here are immense. The sheer lack of metabolic noise at this stage literally flips genetic switches like FOXO3, shifting cellular budgets completely away from growth and heavily into fortification and DNA repair. Your DNA isn't a static blueprint, it's a dynamic switchboard. When insulin and mTOR is silenced for 3 days, circuin pathways, which depend on NAD+, go to work repairing DNA strand breaks. Simultaneously, your body accelerates the pruning of senescent inflammatory white blood cells, those old immunocells that drive chronic low-grade inflammation. And this creates an incredible immunological vacuum. Once those old, misfiring immune cells are recycled, deeply suppressed IGF-1 and mTOR activate dormant hematopoietic stem cells in the bone marrow. They prepare to generate a fresh, non-inflammatory immune system the exact moment refeeding occurs. This is a staggering clinical finding. By clearing out the dysfunctional immune cells during the 72-hour fast, you clear the board. Then, the moment you reintroduce nutrition, these primed stem cells receive the signal to rebuild, actively regenerating a younger, far more efficient immune profile.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 6, Clinical Guardrails and Refeeding, the crucial transition. Fasting at this depth is a serious medical intervention, and the way you end the fast is honestly just as critical as the fast itself. The body has spent days in a delicate state of profound repair, and throwing a heavy metabolic load at it abruptly can be highly dangerous.
We must be crystal clear here. Prolonged fasting is completely contraindicated for these specific clinical populations unless under extreme, direct medical supervision.
The electrolyte dynamics and the potential for profound hypoglycemia in a patient on insulin or sulfonylureas present immediate medical risks. Fasting is a powerful biological stressor. It requires a baseline level of health and physiological resilience to be applied safely.
To safely rebuild, you have to follow strict steps. Start by sipping mineral-rich bone or vegetable broth. Then introduce soft, easily digestible protein like eggs or fish. And finally, gradually resume normal, healthy fats and fibers. Your gut lining has been in a dormant, healing state. Digestive enzymes are super low. Starting with bone broth provides vital sodium and potassium to balance electrolytes while gently waking up the digestive tract. Following this up with soft amino acids ensures a gentle, highly controlled rise in insulin to signal the transition from repair back to rebuild.
You absolutely cannot simply break a 72-hour fast with a high-carbohydrate meal without risking severe electrolyte derangement and insulin shock. A massive spike in insulin forces potassium, magnesium, and phosphate rapidly right back into your cells. This rapid shift, known clinically as refeeding syndrome, can lead to cardiac arrhythmias and severe distress. Safe refeeding allows a smooth metabolic transition back to mTAR growth mode. The transition must be respected just as much as the fast.
Ultimately, the clinical sweet spot for most patients isn't extreme starvation, but building a sustainable rhythm of 16 to 24-hour metabolic resets. While a 72-hour fast provides an incredible systemic overhaul, the vast majority of metabolic, neurological, and longevity benefits are achieved by simply giving your body a daily, uninterrupted window of low insulin. This daily rhythm ensures your internal demolition crew gets to clear out the molecular debris before it ever has a chance to cause disease.
I'll leave you with this provocative thought as we wrap up today's explainer. If your cells possess an ancient, billion-year-old repair program just waiting to clear out disease, when was the last time you stayed entirely out of its way? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into human physiology. Your body is a miraculous, self-healing machine, but it requires the physiological silence of the fasting state to perform its deepest maintenance. Take this science, apply it safely, and consider giving yourselves the time they need to rebuild you from the inside out.